best is yet to come.
Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Cappuccino Club social TV channel. We go live 6 days a week from Cape Town in South Africa. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda, and my amazing co-host is Viola Manuel, in case you haven't met us before. Welcome, Viola. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm fine. I'm actually just getting used to the cold weather now because Cape Town's now just suddenly experiencing such extreme cold weather. At least for us, it's extreme. You know, we've been so, South Africans are so spoiled by having sort of mild weather. We really don't have extreme weather, but it's just suddenly become very cold. I do know that Johannesburg is also experiencing some really cold weather. But yeah, it's cold and it's very few homes have central heating. So you feel it, you feel the cold. But it's been good. It's been good. How's your day been?
Same here, cold. I'm frozen to the bone. I'm sitting here with a blanket over my knees to try and keep warm. We don't have, overseas people have central heating built into their homes. It's a de facto standard for homes. Whereas in South Africa, I was talking to someone about this the other day, was in South Africa, you have windows and doors that don't seal properly. And the cold seeps in.
Yeah. But also remember that our weather's, I think over the last few years, it's actually gotten much colder. Growing up as a kid, I remember we had lots of rain. We had lots of rain in winter, but it wasn't as extremely cold. But maybe it's because I was young and foolish and didn't even think about it. But I can't remember it being this cold. So I think our weather is changing. Our weather patterns are changing. And so it's cold compared to, it's just been a bit crazy. But, one of the things that we keep talking about is, just keep thinking about all the homeless people and people who don't have homes, you're constantly thinking about them. But, for those of us who are part of, as part of lockdown now, it's a great time to just cuddle up and take your blanket and binge watch your series if you've finished all your work. And so we're all stuck in our homes still, day 74.
Absolutely. Still hard to believe we are where we are, One thing I did want to mention, we've spoken a lot about how we could, pivoting and using technology to pivot. And a lot of people have taken, to going online. Meetings are online. I think a lot of companies are still holding their meetings online. People are taking their business models online. I have seen a lot of ads looking for digital administrators, digital marketing managers. A lot of those positions are flying around at the moment, and they're looking for people who know how to take the business online, because a lot of companies have had a web presence, but simply having a website doesn't mean that you can trade online, that you can interact with your clients online. So there's a huge shift. I know there were a lot of companies historically that may have had a web presence, but they were averse to social media.
Absolutely. And then I think everybody sort of got onto the social media bandwagon. But now there's a whole different level of tech support and where technology is, of course, enabling your meetings. And so it's a whole different ball game. So I've also been seeing there's a major trend now looking for sort of digital managers. What's been interesting is that I think the version before of the Companies Act allowed you to postpone your AGM, for example. But the current Companies Act doesn't allow you to. It's got to take place 15 months after your AGM has taken place. The next AGM has to happen. So one of the boards that I sit on, we had a discussion today on how we would actually manage an online AGM, because you also, I don't know if the feature is on Microsoft Teams or on Zoom, where you actually can get your participants to vote. So you need to have so that's what we're busy investigating now, which is the best technology to actually host an online AGM. So it's really, every single time we just continue to learn. It's such a steep learning curve for businesses, for CEOs, executive leadership, and boards around how to manage with all of this. But Yeah, I think, the tech companies are growing, they are booming at the moment.
I don't know about Microsoft Teams, having the ability to vote, but I do know that Zoom does have the ability to
Okay.
do polls.
Okay.
I've participated in Zoom meetings where we've done polls in
Okay.
real time.
Okay.
So that's good to
Yeah.
know for that
Yeah.
kind of application.
Yeah.
Um, I was quite amazed. I must, talking about technology. For those of you who don't know, we're using a online product called StreamYard for the Cappuccino Club social TV shows. It's a browser-based software, and I think most of you who followed us can see the kind of things that you can do with this. You can have a fully branded show with guests. You can have up to 6 people on screen. You can show slides, photographs. You can play videos. You can engage with your clients. You can show their comments on screen. So there's a lot of scope within this software for you to be able to do a broadcast on behalf of your
Mm.
company. Um, the other thing that was noteworthy for me yesterday, and I still had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe it, but a notification popped up for me on Facebook that I did my first LinkedIn live broadcast a year ago. I mean, it feels like
Wow.
yesterday. I was like, that feels surreal, almost unbelievable that I've had access to LinkedIn Live for one whole year. I actually was the first person in Africa to receive access to LinkedIn Live.
Do you know what that tells me? That we've been going at this for almost a year. Because
It's insane.
when we started our discussion, our first meeting that we had, you mentioned that that very day you had just received notification that says that you had been given, sort of been awarded the opportunity to do that, to go live on LinkedIn. So we are both going to have to get cupcakes and candles and say well done to both of us, because I mean it's been amazing. It has been amazing what the platform has done, even for the Cappuccino Club. And it was never set up to sort of be a marketing tool, but it's just helped so many people that have engaged with the club. It's just helped so many people. So it's been brilliant. It's been a brilliant tool. But I mean, just in terms of the whole, lockdown and South Africa right now, it's interesting. I spoke to somebody from New Zealand, and they were saying that I think it was yesterday, yesterday was day 12 with no new cases, no new infections. So they
Amazing.
were
That's wonderful.
so they were expecting to actually go back to level one or absolutely no lockdown. I think it's
I
the
think
end
they've
of
gone
this
down to
month.
level one. They've
Okay.
actually they've made the announcement. I think everyone was doing the happy dance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really excited to celebrate when we get there. When South Africa finally gets to the point where we are, we're sitting with 14 days, no infections. I don't know if that will happen for South Africa. I think it's really going to be a vaccination, a vaccine that's going to help us get out of this whole situation. I'm just not sure that
I
the
think,
level of social distancing is enough for us to be able to say that we would get to a day 14 without new infections.
I think our situation's unique, our economy, the structure of how we do things here. The before we started the show, we were talking about the lifting of the alcohol ban, for example. So last week, looking back at the week that was, last week on Monday, we shifted to level 3, which was opening up the economy a bit. And along with opening up the economy, meant that bottle stores for the first time were permitted to trade. We've
Mhm.
been under strict lockdown, they weren't allowed to trade. And I
Yeah,
think what a lot of people don't know is that, of what significance the bottle stores are in South Africa.
yeah,
Because one
yeah,
thing that people may not know is that our hospitals are kept busy significantly because of alcohol induced injuries.
yeah.
And it's
And
probably one of the reasons why the lockdown or the prohibition of alcohol lasted for as long as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, there's a video circulating, but I think the video actually just expresses, in my mind, what a lot of frontline staff, what a lot of nurses are feeling, where they're saying, you know what, we have actually sacrificed our families, we've sacrificed our time with our kids, we've sort of self-isolated, we've done everything we needed to do, we've lived at the hospital that we work in, we've been, just for the sake of our families, staying away, etc., etc., etc. And the video goes on to say, she says that for such a long time, there was no, they used to get excited when somebody walked in for stitches because there was absolutely nothing, no kind of level of violent crime that you see. And as soon as level 3 was introduced and the alcohol ban was lifted, they went back to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stabbings a night, and she was just expressing the frustration of frontline workers saying, you know what, people didn't understand, they don't understand the level. And I think that's one of the things that Minister Windy, when he was still MEC of Economic Development, and he then brought in all those new the new liquor legislation where there were different times for selling liquor in the province and so on. And everybody was very upset about it, couldn't understand it. It is about the violence that goes together with people's alcohol abuse, the immense amount of loss of life, the amount that it costs the public and the taxpayer in terms of hospitals having to support all this, the treatment of people who are injured through violence associated with alcohol. It's crazy. And now you can see it.
It's massive, 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 massive. And the
Yeah.
problem is that already our ICU wards are full of COVID patients.
Yes. Yes.
And so you have these additional cases coming in that are alcohol related, and people now run the risk of not getting the surgery fast enough that they may need to get to save their lives because there's no space in the ICU. So this is a big
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. And of course, the Hospital of Hope, which is the 850 beds at the Cape Town Convention Centre, has now taken on their first 10 patients. I think 10 beds are full. And apparently it's a completely paperless system. So you literally come in there and there's like very little sort of paper and admin to comply with. No visitors, but because of Wi-Fi, they've got a full suite of technology and support that technology requires. Patients are allowed to FaceTime with their families. So, and as I understand, it's just like beautifully decorated with all these little rainbows of hope that kids from across the Western Cape have drawn. So very excited that our facilities just now starting to be used. It's an amazing facility. It's top of the, sort of top
Because
of the range.
it would have been empty otherwise, it would have
Yeah.
been wasted space.
I think this is an example of just an entity that pivoted so well during the lockdown. Just amazing how well they coped and pivoted. Yeah, so I'm quite excited about that. I think another thing that's been on everybody's minds at the moment is the schools and going back to school. I know that a lot of kids have gone back to school. I know a lot of parents have decided not to send their kids to school until they have an opportunity to assess how safe it is. But the Minister of Basic Education has said 95% of the schools were ready to go back, had all the support that they needed from the Department of Education. So yeah, I think it will there'll be lots of teething problems, but I'm sure that over time things will just smooth out and our kids will go back to getting the education that's required with the safety measures that are required as well. So if we can get that balance right, then that would be a good thing for the future of our kids and for their education, and just being able to make sure that we take care of them as much as we can and be as responsible as we can amidst this whole COVID debacle and crisis, that we actually just get our kids back to schools.
We spoke about the tourism industry the other day, and I thought it was worth a mention again. You highlighted how our tourist industry could possibly pivot and help businesses. So instead of taking tourists around, they could actually be driving company staff in their vehicles and
Yeah.
making sure that they're safe, so that staff doesn't have to use public transport, and they are transported safely. So if you're out there listening and you're in the tourism industry, this is something that you could look into, approaching companies and making sure their staff gets home safely,
Yeah.
and even, possibly our children that need
Yeah.
to be transported, because there's a huge
Yeah.
deficit in terms of the availability.
Yeah.
With social distancing, the taxis are not permitted to transport as many children. So I'm sure if some of you reach out to parents and make yourselves, your services available. Something else I saw, Viola, that was very heartwarming today, I think it was TourVest. They are doing
Yeah.
um, virtual tours around the Western Cape, and it's very well done. They're using Zoom to do virtual tours, guided virtual tours.
Yeah.
I had a look at it, and very innovative. Love what they're doing, and what they do is at the end of the virtual tour, they display the SnapScan code so that you can make a contribution. And
Yes.
I thought it was a
And
lovely way of doing it.
yeah, and the other thing that the tourism industry is doing, there's an international example. I'm not sure that we're doing it locally yet, but creating a video that makes you feel as if you are, it's sort of real time, that you're taking a walk along the sort of main walkways, so walks through the jungle, walks up mountains, and they've actually got the software that allows you to connect it to your exercise, your treadmill, and the treadmill then makes the adjustments in terms of, if you're walking up an incline, it looks like that, you feel like it, you're panting as if you're walking up the incline. It just can't simulate the loose rocks that you're going to fall on, but it's just so interesting, because it's now, people are taking those virtual walks, falling in love with those places and putting them on their bucket lists. And
Ye-
another very, very interesting pivot, Brigitte, for the tourism industry is, especially people with Airbnb. Airbnb
mhm.
has taken such a hit,
Huge
but a
knock.
lot of people need a place to isolate, to self-isolate. So, especially in homes where it's extremely full, I think if Airbnb could be made available to those people for the 14 days that you have to isolate yourself, I think that there's an opportunity, but it obviously can't be at those exorbitant rates that everybody was charging international tourists. But I think if you put your place up and say, this place is a good place to quarantine, there's, point out the reasons why, and do a deep clean on the place before and after, I think that there's another opportunity for the tourism industry to pivot.
And even if they had to drop their rates, it's better than nothing, because
Correct.
since lockdown, there's been zero income. So even if they had to take a huge cut, getting
Yes.
half of what they did before is a huge
Yes.
improvement over absolutely
Yes.
no
Yes.
income.
Especially, so I take myself for example. I've got elderly parents staying with me. If two or three of us were to get ill, it's very difficult to sort of self isolate in a home where you've got people who are at high risk. So either sending them away or you go away makes a lot of sense. And it's 14 days. So if you could put packages together for those 14 days at a more reasonable rate and advertise it as such, I think that there's another opportunity for the tourism industry to pivot. But yeah, so, and I think COVID's going to be with us for a very long time still, especially for us here in South Africa. And people are going to have to find ways to, so if you have Wi-Fi, you've got a one-bedroom place, put it up, advertise it as a place for people to come and, self-isolate.
Absolutely. And I think we still, we opened the conversation with technology. I think we've got a long way to go. There are children that for some or the other reason are not able to go to school. And, we need to embrace technology and be smart about it. Teachers had no preparation for this. Teachers were not trained to do online classrooms.
Mm,
So you've got children that have returned to school now, but not everyone can.
yeah,
And you can't, for those who aren't able to attend school for a legitimate reason, or the parents aren't convinced that their children will be safe, it doesn't mean that those children should be left behind. We've still got to
correct.
use technology to make sure that they can keep up with the rest of the class that are able to go to school. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
lots of
and
things that we can do.
another industry that could very easily, I think, sort of suit itself to helping is the printing industry, because there's a lot of kids where if people were going to donate something, they could donate paper or they could donate money to actually getting some of the work printed for school for students. Because I really think there's a lot of kids who do not have access to devices, who do not have Wi-Fi, but and need to stay at home. Just getting those people to be able to, getting those schools to be able to print that material and then have it delivered to kids. It's such a thing for me. It's like one of my soapbox issues, that we need to be able to understand that everybody doesn't come from a position of privilege. And so if we can find a way to use the industries that have a little bit of a lull in them now to just to assist those children, that makes so much sense.
Absolutely, it does. It does. I think that's kind of a wrap for our show
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We
if you're
always
watching
just
the show,
talking and talking.
I
Yeah.
know. So if you're watching the show on the replay, let us know where you're at. If you are in South Africa, how has the first week back? Because it's Monday to Monday. It's been the first week back where business has opened up. What are the difficulties you're experiencing? Are you finding that your company is able to enforce social distancing? How's that working for you? We'd love to know.
Thank you so much. And then, of course, just for all the viewers to also just tell us where they're at in terms of their businesses, and how your business is pivoting. How are you as an individual pivoting? How are you coping? Yeah, it would be interesting to hear from our viewers.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to everyone who's watched the show live with us. And thank you to those of you who's catching the show on the replay. We'll be back again tomorrow. So stay safe and have a great evening, everyone. From us in
Thanks.
Cape Town, it's goodbye for now.
Bye bye.